So, welcome to the second in the series of Thrive calls. And today we're going to focus on target market. Just in terms of what's coming up for the calls in the coming weeks, next week we'll cover product and offer, and the week after that we'll get into some quick weekly tactics. I'll leave it for now for the following weeks, but just to give you a taste of some of the things that we'll cover that will be of interest to you as we move forward in this series of 8 calls. What I thought might be useful for today, before we get into today's content with Lawrence and myself, just to give you a quick recap of what we covered last week, both for those who were on the call and for anyone that might have missed it. So first of all, we talked about creating some small steps in order to get some big results. And we talked about the importance of our intention. We talked about the importance of the possibilities of things that might be able to come by directing our energy and our efforts in the right way. And we talked about getting clear on our vision and our goals and understanding what our strengths and our weaknesses are. We also talked about the power of being seen in multiple places. And that is such an important part of this journey as we start to be able to be more visible to our prospects and to our customers. So that was kind of like the first part of the session, and then the second part of the session was looking at the tools themselves and how to apply some of those tools in order to be able to help you to navigate this business growth world with some support and with some structure. So we talked last week about getting more customers. We talked about keeping customers for longer, increasing retention. We talked about bringing old customers back, and we talked about increasing the basket spend. And we started to dive a little bit into some of that customer journey and how we want to try and smooth out these peaks and troughs of people coming and leaving and coming and leaving, and how the first 30 days are such an important part of that customer journey. And then Lawrence started to introduce some of the tools that are available, things like the newsletter builder, things like the social planner, landing pages, and so on. And today we're going to get into understanding a bit more about our customers and our customer behaviors and what customers are looking for. And then later on, we'll get into how to do market research effectively and how to send and build an effective survey that you can send out to your customers, so that you can take that and start using that immediately as we move forward. So without any more delay, let me hand over to Lawrence, and Lawrence will take us through the food identity theory. So Lawrence, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, David. So it's a really important aspect of any kind of growth that you're trying to do. Really having a solid idea of who your customer is and who you're trying to target, and those things might be different. And so this work is based on 20 plus years that I've worked in marketing, but also it's based on a bit of research that was recently done into the foodie label. And it was identified that, if you could go to the next slide, David, it was identified that 71% of the population identifies as foodies. So UK engaged population, food engaged population is about 71%. And so we can no longer say, our veg box scheme, our micro dairy or whatever is aimed at foodies. We now need to break it down a little bit further. And this research broke it down into the following segments. So we've got the maker, the hedonist, the hunter, the purist, the host, and the intellect. And the purist is the one that most of us are talking to. And that makes up about 13% of the population, which is actually quite a small little segment of the population. So you can really see that if you're trying to grow your veg box scheme or your shop, you have great potential if you think outside of what the purist is. Next slide. So to break this down, the purist has organic as the baseline, and they just probably won't eat food that contradicts their values, and they're very engaged in local and organic and everything that is about many of the businesses on the Ubi system. But then you've got the maker, and this one is much more about ingredients. They engage with things like better soil, but better flavor and so on comes into it a little bit more. The intellect is thinking about organic as a system. They enjoy thinking about soil health, biodiversity, and the science and so on. The host might enjoy organic signals, but yeah, it's about demonstrating to guests and so on that they are organic. The hedonist is organic earns nothing unless it tastes better. It's really trying to the labels are kind of irrelevant. It's just really trying to go after flavor. It is basically everything. And then the hunter, organic is interesting when it means something rare. So this person might really link in with heritage varieties and so on. The purist and the maker are really close to each other in language, but the motivation is completely different. So the purist is about exclusion. So it's not worth eating unless it's organic or fits my values. Whereas the maker is about elevation. And so organic makes my dishes better. So let's go to the next slide. And if you want to get really kind of geeky and sort of break this down a little bit more, you could break down these archetypes into different kind of personas. So if you look at the two personas that I really want to like focus in on are the purist and the maker. And so within the purist, you've got people that are very health first. You've got some people might fall into these categories. Some might identify with many of them. Some are very eco-conscious. Some will be wellness seekers, and then others will be community supporters. And then in the maker, you've got the sort of retired foodie, empty nesters, and so on. They're suddenly exploring their food. You know, where their food may have been quite restricted when they had kids around who are fussy, they're now exploring their horizons a little bit. It's a really good opportunity. And then you've also got like the seasonal adventurer. And so that's, if you want to break it down a little bit more, those are worth keeping in the back of your mind. So let's move on to the next slide. So when you have set up your farm and you start posting to Instagram and Facebook, and you start posting photos of, look at me digging the soil, look at this amazing chard growing in with a worm crawling around, all of the sort of behind the scenes stuff, hands in the soil, that really connects with the purist. I've put zero budget there because you probably don't need, apart from time, you don't really need to put much ad spend or like spend much money on trying to attract these people. You'll draw them in basically with just being who you are and just posting kind of behind the scenes pictures and stuff. But the problem is that you can hit a bit of a ceiling. And so if I just do some kind of quick maths here, you've got 13% of the population. If you take a town of about 24,000 people, which is my local town, and then you kind of break it down into the sort of normal kind of attention that you might generate through your Instagram and so on. We know that 13% of 24,000 people is 1,600 people, which obviously is not that many really. And then if you look at like a normal Instagram reach, you're really talking about 400 people that you might be able to reach through your Instagram, and then you may convert about 40 of them. So that's kind of providing through just your social Instagram a limit on the amount of people that you might reach. So let's go to the next slide. So the unlock is that is the maker, and they are already there. This is 28% of the population. They love cooking from scratch, and they're looking for quality ingredients, step by step inspiration, and you can really engage them through like creativity. If we look at Riverford's grid, Instagram grid, you can see that they are doing exactly what I'm talking about. So you've actually got 3 photos of Guy kind of behind the scenes talking about purist stuff really, and then you've got 3 pictures which are aimed at the maker. And I didn't engineer this, I just literally took a screenshot, and it's like literally 50% of their posts are aimed at the maker and 50% are really aimed at the purist. And so this is sort of no coincidence really. Let's go to the next slide. So the strategy is trying to enable creativity in the kitchen. Provenance, quality, recipe inspiration speaks to the maker, and crucially, it retains the purist. So you can engage the purist through behind the scenes and the look at me digging in the soil, but you engage them. There's a new member request. You can engage them through these kind of posts. So the purist reads, grown without pesticides on soil managed for 30 years is values proof. The maker reads the same sentence as quality proof. So you don't need a new story, you just need to tell it a little bit differently. Let's go to the next slide. How do we engage these 2 different markets? So this is me interpreting some of the data. This is taking the research and then applying it to us. That I think that the purist subscriber is more likely to go down the farmer's choice box. So they're happy with the set weekly box. They trust you to pick the right products. They probably have like low engagement with the content, but really high loyalty to your mission. However, they're probably loyal and steady, but probably have a lower average order value, AOV. I think the maker probably has a higher average order value, and they're probably more likely to have the custom box in its entirety or the farmer's choice plus add-ons, because they want to choose. They want recipe cards. They might want a kid's lunchbox kit, and they're just basically going to buy more add-ons. So that's how we engage them through product. So let's go to the next slide. How do we engage them? How do we engage these different segments through kind of marketing, social media, and so on? So the purist, the message to them is this food is grown the way it should be grown. Farmer to camera in the field, hands in the soil, posting about your plastic free, for instance. Certification spotlight, so what organic certification actually means for your food. This really sort of taps into that wellness seeker or that health first person. So really just explaining what organic actually does is I think a really good kind of content stream for you, because what we're doing is we're paying a lot of money for organic certification. Let's actually use it in our marketing and like go into it into a bit of depth, because I don't think people really understand what the difference is. Weekly farm updates and so on are really important for the purist, and they're the ones that are going to come along to your AGMs and your events and so on. probably volunteering as well. Let's go to the next slide. So the maker. So how you engage with them is that they'll be thinking this is the best leek you'll ever cook with. So step-by-step recipe, reel, skill building, post about kids' lunch boxes, putting cucumbers and carrot sticks and stuff in the box, giving them those kind of ideas. This is what we threw into the box this week, and then technique tips as well. So this is how you might. I did a really nice post about how to chop chard, and it did really, really well on Instagram for my farm. And there's some really nice techniques about like rolling kale into a thing and chopping it up in a certain way. And so those are the kind of posts that you can do to really engage the maker. Let's go to the next slide. So yeah, your natural home is the purist. It's 13% of the population, and it's probably 80% of your current subscriber base. And as I said, they're reached through organic, social, and word of mouth. But going to the next slide, the maker is 28% of the population. But I've done these two Venn diagrams because it's just showing the difference between like your effort levels. So with the purist, you probably have to put 20% effort in to get that 80% of your audience, whereas for the maker, you might have to put in more effort to get maybe 20% more. Sort of Palatio kind of principle. I mean, hopefully you get more than that, but it's just to indicate that you have to put in a bit more effort. We're not talking about like a rebrand or new kind of strap lines or anything. We're just talking about a messaging pivot. And they're reached the same way through Instagram and word of mouth, but you may also have to think about other methods such as face-to-face and various advertising kind of techniques, which is going to be in a future webinar. Next slide. So the ladder, focus on the purist, trying to really maximize that out. This is where you start, and you will probably draw in the intellect a little bit, and I've made some guesses here around. I've put like LTV and spend, and like income brackets, and this is my hypothesis. This is not based on the data, but my hypothesis is that the purist is potentially a moderate income. Ethical spend competes with budget constraints as well. So their LTV is probably pretty high, but when financial constraints come in, they may dip out.
Sorry, Lawrence, just 1 second. Could you just explain what LTV means, just for the benefit of
Yes. So, sorry, acronyms and jargon. LTV is lifetime value. So this is the amount of time that they might spend. Sorry, this is the amount of spend divided over the amount of time. So it's the lifetime value in monetary value of your customer. So it will be say they spend £20 a week for you with you, and they have on average buy 40 boxes. That gives you that value number. So the maker is probably going to have a higher LTV, whether that's because they stick around longer because money is less of an obstacle, or because they have a higher basket value, and they'll spend a bit more. And they'll probably be dual income families, and kitchen is a priority for priority spend for them. You can actually combine these together into what the research called the home pair. So the maker messaging brings in the host. So the maker and the host combined to create the home pair, and these will have a very high spend as well. And then maybe once you've really explored this and like locked down what you're doing with this, you might, if you want to get super advanced in your targeting, you might then go into the other segments, which is on the next slide, which is the hedonist and the hunter. So the hedonist is potentially double income, no kids, food is a pleasure, price is secondary. Loyalty is sort of transactional, not emotional. The lifetime value is probably going to be quite low, and you probably have to spend quite a bit of money to get them. So you can dabble with it, but don't focus on it. It's the same with the hunter. I think the hunter lifetime value is going to be really, really low and probably cost even more. But you may pick up the odd hunter through some of your marketing if you do it, or when you do it. And then, is that the end? Or I think that's the end. What's the next slide?
It's the end.
It's the end. Yeah. So just in conclusion, I think the takeaway from this is to do a little bit of what Riverford does. They've put money and effort behind what they're doing. They're obviously very successful, and I realize that some of this might be a little bit. It's much easier to say, quick whip out your phone as you're harvesting. But what I would challenge you to do is a really easy, quick one that you could do even this week, is when you get your own veg box at home, do a little video of you unpacking it, or just take a nice photo of it in your kitchen. And then that is probably going to scream to the maker a little bit more. So it's just a subtle shift of things. And, that would be a nice place to start. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And I think David's now going to take over in terms of the survey stuff.
Thank you, Lawrence. Just before I do that, I think it's probably quite important just to add at this point that I was doing some face-to-face marketing for one of the UB shops on Friday. And what came up quite a lot, because we're down in Devon, is, Riverford. And it's just interesting to hear Lawrence talk about Riverford and what Riverford are doing. We need to all remember in this space that what we bring is something very different to what Riverford offers. We're not providing that big national thing. We're providing a local, intimate thing. And that gives the opportunity for people to really interact with that and engage on the farm and do some of the things that people used to be able to do when Riverford was smaller, but they can't anymore because of the scale they're at. So we should absolutely, listening to what Lawrence has said, absolutely take some of those lessons and see some of that, some of those learnings that have happened, but also remember that we have this kind of unique opportunity to be a niche player in this space and in our local communities, which is super important. Let me talk now a little bit about surveys, and probably the big thing that everyone thinks about when they're being asked to fill out a survey is, well, I hate filling out surveys, and it's always such a waste of time. So why should I bother doing one for my customers, and how on earth will I get them to fill it out? And so what I'm going to cover this afternoon is a little bit around effective survey creation. And I'll also give you some examples of where ineffective survey completion comes in, and how to kind of avoid some of those pitfalls. So first of all, this is what people generally think about ineffective surveys. They think they're a waste of time. They think they take too long. They think that people ask questions that they've asked before, and they just repeat those questions and nothing's changed. There doesn't seem to be an incentive to fill it out or a reason to do it. It seems like they're just trying to get a particular sort of answer out of those things. The questions didn't really make any sense. So there's lots of reasons why this can create resistance when you ask your customers to fill something out. So it's very important as we go through this process now that we kind of plan the way in which we do this. We ask the right questions, and then we actually use the data that we are going to get from the survey to make some change, Just planning something, asking some questions, and then doing nothing with it is pointless. So we do really need to think about what we're trying to find out from our customers. So if you take some of the things that Lawrence has just said, when we're trying to work out who our customers are, why they buy from us, what they're going to buy, how much their average spend is, and how we can get them to increase it, or whether we're trying to get some information about how we want to improve our doorstep experience or whatever it might be, we need to be really, really smart about how we do that and how we engage with our customers so that we get the information that we want. And then once we do that and they see that we've responded to that, they'll be more likely to respond and interact with us when we do these sort of things in the future. So for me, there are 6 kind of fundamentals to getting this getting survey creation done properly, and these are these, and I'll go into some detail in a minute on the next slide about what they are. But being really like super clear about what you want out of it and giving it like really like laser clear focus. So really thinking about what sort of information that you want to get out. The next thing is obviously about people's time. If you give people a survey and it's going to be, like the census, and it's going to take them half a week to work out how to answer it, you can forget it. Your ability to be able to get people to respond and get the information that you want is just not going to happen. So respecting people's time is highly important. Using clear, neutral, and an unbiased language. So I'll talk to you a little bit about what that means, but it's just about having, again, that kind of like single clear focus and not using difficult language. Mixing closed and open questions, so trying to get a single answer and then trying to get some content and some juice behind that. The 5th one being around making sure that when you're asking your questions, they are engaging and they are kind of on brand. And what I mean by on brand is they kind of like represent where you are in your business and what you're trying to put out into the world. Because again, asking questions is market research, but it's also marketing as well. And then the last one, which is being hyper clear about how you're going to use the data and being comfortable with telling your customers what you're going to do. So all of that can lead to really useful information that can help improve customer experience and can help drive growth in your business. So this is some of the detail behind each one of those things. And if we take like objective as the first one, having that kind of laser clear objective, we absolutely need to avoid what I would call like just in case questions. So we don't want to like pepper this with all sorts of like random stuff which might be useful to us but is actually not really part of this like laser precise mission. So being really, really specific. And let's take an example. We want to get specific about what our customer service experience is like, or what we want to get really specific about what the range is like in the shop, or we want to try and get specific about how to get people to spend more. It has to be like really focused, so get really clear on that objective. In terms of the time, there's kind of a rule from my perspective, which is like no more than 5 to 10 questions. No more than 5 to 10. People have such a finite amount of time. I mean, if we are really clear about the outcome that we want, then we need to respect that time, but we also need to make sure that the response rate is high. So in order to be able to do that, really make that like short, snappy, clear, and then you'll start to get the information back that you want. As soon as we start to get these big, long lists of things, people will open the page, they'll look at it and they go, no, not now, I'll do it later. And then they never will. So your moment is in that moment once they click the link. When I talk about clear and neutral, I mean like no jargon, no buzzwords, and certainly no leading questions. So we're trying to keep people really clear on what our mission is and really super, so that people feel like they feel empowered to be able to answer it. Because if people don't understand the language that's being used and there is jargon in there, they'll not understand it, or they might give you an answer that you weren't expecting because they didn't fully understand it. So being really clear and really, really neutral in the way the questions are asked is absolutely critical. Mixing it up. So closed and open questions. So trying to get a specific data set about something means you'll have to ask for a potential range between 0 and 10. How do we perform in these things between 0 and 10? Give us an answer. That's like a closed question. It can only be one answer. And then open questions are getting into some of the detail behind why something happens. So You could ask a question which is, how do you rate the experience of our online shop from 0 to 10? And then you ask a question which is, what's the most engaging part from your perspective about our shop? And then they'll give you a written answer to that. So when you mix those two things up, you can follow those on to get a little bit more detail behind what someone's actually how they're actually answering it. Design is so important. Some people feel like just asking questions to some folks is enough, and it isn't. It's really, really important that people get this kind of look and feel and tone of voice that comes from your businesses, so that they can see that it's still, even though you're asking these questions, it's still on that mission and the reason why they are buying from you in the first place. So, nicely branded and with language that you normally use in your newsletters and your content that you put out to customers, make it feel like it's in essence a very similar kind of experience, and then it will be very engaging for people. And as I said earlier, every part of this engagement is your opportunity to be able to do some marketing, and this feels part of that marketing experience. And then the last thing is just around making sure, from your perspective, that you're going to get out of it what you're asking for. So you need to really think about the questions that you're asking, so that if you're trying to get some kind of quantitative answer, then you can add and top those all up. If you're trying to get some kind of qualitative answer, that you can get all that information and get hold of that, and then that is super useful, and you can demonstrate how that data is going to be used with your customers and with your prospects as well. So those are the six fundamentals in a bit more detail. What I thought might be quite handy is to kind of bring some good examples and some less good examples to kind of make this feel a bit more real. So I talked a little bit about this kind of rating scale. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with the service we provide? It's like very straightforward, simple question. It's either really good, of course it will be, or it's less good, but of course it'll be really good. So you have that scale in, and then it's really easy for them to click it and put that in. And then you could then have a multiple choice question, which is, which of the following best describes why you buy from us? And then you can come up with some things that you want to know that are clear for people. You do a multiple choice, really clear question, non-ambiguous, and they just click those multiple choice answers and off you go. And then this kind of open-ended question, which is, how would you like us to improve our delivery service? So that is an open comments box. You ask the question, people put in their responses, you make that mandatory, and they respond and they give you that information, and then you can sit and respond to that and look at that and decide how you're able to do that. Obviously, the clear and important part of this is to be able to say that you've received this information and that you're going to do something about it. Okay, and that might be you are going to change something, or that might be you're not able to do anything at the moment. But by responding in some way and acknowledging the time that people have taken is really important. The kind of less good end of the spectrum are these kind of like leading questions. How amazing do you think our awesome produce is? Is leading people into this place of, well, we already think we're the bee's knees, so we're just kind of going through some kind of process here because someone in the marketing team told us to ask some questions of our customers. Not a good thing, right? If we genuinely want to know what our produce is like, or genuinely want to know what people think of our service, we've got to ask that in a neutral way. Then there's the double ask. So there's asking two things in one question, which is completely confusing to people. So how satisfied are you with our delivery service and our website? Two completely unrelated things which make no sense, and they're not joined together whatsoever, except maybe in somebody's head. So yeah, avoid the double ask. Ask a specific thing, and then if you want to ask something about something else, ask it in the next question, but don't join things together. And then the last thing is kind of like this vague thing. So how would you rate our offer? Well, what do people understand to be the offer? We've got to be really clear about what our offer is. And is that offer a home delivery service? Is our offer organic veg? Is our offer a butchery service? What is it? And people just won't know. So we've got to make it really clear for them about how to do that. So there's some examples to try and bring it to life, some theory around how to make that work, and some thoughts that hopefully will provoke you to think about how you can engage with your customers and can ask some questions that will get you some data that you like. And obviously, the Thrive tools have the ability for us to be able to create all of these things and to have the flow set up appropriately, and for us to be able to send information out and get information back within the tool. So there's some great, sophisticated, and straightforward to use technology here that can bring this to life. So that brings us to the point where the content is concluded, and we have a few people online. I don't know if we have any questions that have come up as we've been talking. Seb, I don't know if there's anything come up in the chat whilst we've been presenting.
No.
Okay.
Nothing in the chat. Could you just it'd be good, maybe this is for you, Lawrence, I don't know, but just to clarify kind of how the tools within, like, I guess basically just giving a reminder of what Thrive is and how these tools can help with, like, creating surveys, for example, and other marketing tools.
Yeah, so we've created the Thrive tools. It's a customer engagement tool. It's the dirty word marketing tool, comms tool, whatever you want to call it. And it has a system in place. You've got all your database already loaded into it, and it's got quizzes and forms that you can use to build an on-brand survey. But I think where the power comes from it is being able to tag people, and so once somebody's been through a survey, you know what sort of responses they took or whether they've been through the survey. So you've then got abilities to follow up with emails, follow up with the incentive that you're trying to offer them. So you'll be able to follow up with maybe a couple of emails saying, thank you very much. Here's a discount or whatever you're going to do to incentivize people. And so it just sort of ties kind of everything together, and makes it sort of easy to use, as opposed to having to do Google Forms or something like that, which doesn't have your database linked to it, and so on.
Great, and that's connected in or into the UB software, right?
Yeah. So if you adopt these tools, all your database will be moved over. Any new subscribers will automatically go into the database, and so on. So it's connected in that way.
Great, thanks. And then David, just one final question from me before I stop taking over everything. You just mention about this academy that is there now with content and things, like what the value is of being part of this, and how people can benefit from it who have signed up to come onto this webinar on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, so the academy is in the school platform, and we're starting to put some really useful content in there. We hope it will be really useful content for you anyway, that will help your businesses learn from some of the mistakes and some of the experiences that we've all had over the years. And there's plenty of information that is already in there, and we're going to grow that over the coming weeks and months. There's obviously the first part of that is this 8-week series of webinars. And if everybody wants a reminder of what's in those, or the themes are for those 8 weeks, the first one was all around big picture, which we kind of covered right at the beginning. Today, we've been talking about target market. We're going to talk next week about product and offering, followed by something that we call quick weekly tactics. The week after that, we're going to get into how to tell your story. And then after that, we're going to talk about how to nurture your customers and talk a little bit about customer life cycle. The 7th week is around different ways in which you can communicate with your customer base and with your prospects. And then the last week is about customer service and customer experience on the doorstep. So this is the kind of first of a series of 8. But Lawrence, Seb, and I, and the rest of the team are pulling together all sorts of content which we think will be useful to help the UB community and to build that community stronger. And what I really want to see in the academy would be an ideal outcome for me, would be some interaction between us all there, asking questions, getting involved, and putting up examples of where this has worked well, and showing some results. That would be a really great outcome as we build this community out and we start to see what it feels like to be, bringing some of this stuff to life online. Hopefully that answers your question, Seb.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'll be quiet now in case there's anybody else who's got a question.
I've got a question if nobody else does. Yeah, I just wondered, like, why do a survey? It's just a basic kind of question.
So I think what's really interesting is the more and more I do this work, the more and more I engage with farms and shops, we're not entirely sure always who our customers are and why they shop with us. And then we're also not entirely sure what we want to do with them and how we want that customer journey to evolve. If we're not sure of those two things, it makes it pretty difficult to be able to work out what service we're trying to provide. And it also makes it quite difficult to work out what service we're going to provide to customers that are not yet customers. So by asking some of these questions, we start to get that kind of, I call it customer intimacy, but it's that knowledge of what's going on in the customer base. And if customers feel like they're answering some questions and those questions are being heard, and there's some kind of response from the farm or from the shop around what's happening, then that really drives up engagement and really gives the opportunity for the customers to be heard. The other part of that, I think, is that, in our space, one of the biggest methods of getting new customers is through word of mouth. And when we are seen to be being proactive and responsive to what our customers are asking, that creates a great buzz around our businesses and helps us to think about how we're going to grow those. So by listening and responding is a great part of that journey. Grand. Well, I think we are probably, let me just double check if anything's come up in the chat.
I think it's all good.
I think we're all good. Okay. Well, in which case, I'll stop the recording there. Thanks everyone for their time. Thank you to Lawrence, Seb, and the others that have joined us today. And if you do have any other questions or you want to ask them, then feel free to post those in school. And look forward to the next one next week. Have a good week, everybody.